Okay, communicating with algebra, the most important thing that we're ever going to talk about is terms. Okay, now term is an expression formed by the product of numbers and or variables. Okay, terms are broken up by adding and subtracting signs. Okay, an example of a term, so examples of terms. Okay, so if we're looking at terms, 3 could be a term. Okay, so that's one example. Another example could be something like 2x could be an example. 8x squared y divided by 3z could be an example. Okay? Negative 4y to the 9th could be an example. As long as they're broken up by an addition or subtraction sign, it's a new term. Okay, there's only multiplying and dividing here. Okay, it says a product, but really like this third one, I could make this equal to x squared y, 3 to the negative 1, z to the negative 1. And now it's all multiplying. It's 8 times x squared times y times 3 to the negative 1 times z to the negative 1. Okay? It's difficult to look at first, but terms are broken up by adding and subtracting. Okay, so here we also need to understand what a coefficient is. So looking here, we have coefficients, constants, and variables. Okay, a coefficient is the leading number in a question. Okay, a variable is a letter that's representing something. So identify the coefficient and variable of each term. So Jim earns $8 per hour. If he works X hours, his earnings are 8X. So the coefficient here is the 8, and the variable is X. The variable is what can change. Okay, the coefficient in the next one, we're looking at throwing a stone into a well, is negative 4.9. Okay, that can't change. The variable is t. Now, a lot of people would write t squared, which I probably wouldn't mark wrong, but that's not technically the variable. The variable is just the t. It's the number that can change. That t can change. T in this case is seconds. You wouldn't write 2 and then think 4 seconds, because that would be 2 squared. It would just be t. Okay, the area of a triangle with a base b and a height h is half bh. So 1/2 is the coefficient. Now there's two variables here. We've got b and we have h, because they could both change. The area of a square with side length k is k squared. Now a lot of people get that k is the coefficient, or sorry, the variable, and you could say that there's no coefficient, or you could say there's a coefficient of 1, okay? Now the last question, it says Amir walks 6 blocks to school. There's no variable here. There's only a coefficient, just 6. Okay, so there's no variable. This is NA, because there's nothing that can change. He walks 6 blocks to school. That's the only thing that's in the question. The next thing we're going to look at is the word polynomial. So a polynomial is an algebraic expression consisting of one or more terms connected by an adding or subtracting operation. Okay, so we can classify by the number of terms. For instance, a monomial has 1 term, a binomial has 2 terms, trinomial has 3 terms. Okay, after that we would just say polynomial. Okay, that's kind of the number that is more than 3 we use. They typically don't say like quadrinomial. Okay, so looking at this, an example of this would be like 3x is a monomial. 2 plus 4x squared is a binomial. And then something like 3x squared minus 6x plus 9 would be a trinomial. Okay? The important thing here is noticing that we can't actually put any of these terms together because they don't have the exact same variables with the exact same exponents. Okay, so in that second example, the binomial has 2 plus 4x squared. They would both have to have x squareds if I want to put them together, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. All right, so classify each of these polynomials by the number of terms. Okay, so the first one has two terms because there's one addition sign. Okay, there's two terms on the outside of that. So that's 2, so that's going to be a binomial. The next one, even though it has kind of a subtraction sign, there's nothing on the other side of it. So this just has one term. So this is a monomial. And then the next one has two adding and subtracting signs, one here and one here. That means there's 3 terms. That's a trinomial. And then finally, we've got 4 terms, and we just said that anything with 4 terms, we're just going to call a polynomial. 4 or more, poly means more than one. It's a group. Okay, so looking at this, the next thing is the degree of a term. Now, the degree of the term is the sum of the exponents on the variables. Okay, sum is adding. So for instance, in this first one, the degree is 2. Okay, the second one, the degree is 4. These ones are kind of easy because there's only one variable. It's when you get more than one variable, it gets a little tougher. This one's 1. Now this one, I have to add all of my exponents. So 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 6 is 13. Okay, and then this one, do I have any variables? I need to look at that. So the degree of this is actually 0. Because there's no variables, that means there's no exponents. All right, now let's look at these. The degree of the polynomial is the degree of the highest degree term. So we need to look at the highest degree term. Okay, so the highest degree term here is x, and then the degree of that is 1. Okay, now if I looked at this next one, so this first one, that was the highest degree. Okay, because the second part doesn't actually have a variable attached to it. This next one, this term and this term are my 2 terms. So the term with the highest degree is 5x squared. Well, the degree of that polynomial is 2. Here we've got 3y cubed, 0.2y, and 1. Well, 3y cubed is bigger than any of the other ones, so that one's 3. Here, 7x squared, y to the 4th, that's degree 6. And then x squared, or x to the 6th, y to the 1, because if there's a y, there's a 1 there, that's 7. That means that this one is the highest degree, and this is degree 7. Okay, be careful with those. The questions for this are on page 134, numbers 1 to 9, 11, and 18.